Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my 100% walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Nintendo Wii. Welcome to the 6th dungeon of the game, the Fire Sanctuary. This dungeon doesn't really introduce too many new items, but it does introduce a lot of new mechanics. In particular, there are these water bulbs that you can smack with various items. So use any of your B-button items. I like to use the claw shots because they don't take up any ammo. But you can do that. This will cause a water droplet to fall in the lava, and when the water comes in contact with lava, it creates platforms that you can use to jump across. There is a fairy in the nearby soft soil, so you can fill up a bottle if you have the room for it, but otherwise, the jars nearby have arrows in them, so just grab that if you are low, and then we can fight the bokoblins up ahead. So there is another water bulb. Now, if the lava is moving, then the platform that is created will move as well, and it doesn't actually disappear until after it hits a wall, or whatever, it comes to a solid stop. But while it's still moving, it'll actually not be, like, wearing down to the lava at all, which is kind of weird. But anyways, up ahead, you want to use the bow on all of the upcoming bokoblins, and there is some treasure they can drop. If you're real quick, you can use the beetle to collect stuff, but you'll just have to switch back to your other items very quickly. Now, you'd want to try and space this out in between being attacked so that you can actually do it, and just be careful not to accidentally jump in the water if you do, or lava, if you sidestep like I just did. Now, if you've been following along with me, you should have plenty of treasure. I actually have the treasure medal equipped, so I've been getting lots of items. In fact, I've gotten a lot of golden skulls in this playthrough, and I think you only need like 2 in the entire game to get all the upgrades. So I have like way more golden skulls than I really need. I'm not sure how many I even have right now. It's probably like 8 or something. But anyways, so I have more than I could ever really use, and I could technically go and sell them to Rupin in Skyloft, although I don't really need anything at this point. I have more rupees than I need for the rest of the game. But yeah, if you've been collecting treasure just whenever it's available, you should have more than enough to upgrade everything you really need in the game. Once you get to the end of this platform, you will find a chest containing the small key, which was our objective for this whole room. At that point, you can jump across to the other side by using the claw shots on the vines up above, and this will lead to some jars that have some arrows, so this allows you to stock up after defeating all those bokoblins. Hop down and we'll meet up with a new character named Gold. So he is an important character for an upcoming side quest that we can't complete just yet, but after the Fire Sanctuary we can do that for some gratitude crystals. But for now what he's doing is he's actually giving us a clue about how to get the boss key later on in this dungeon. So he's giving us a clue on how to proceed with a particular puzzle that you might not even realize is something that needs to be accomplished if you had not gotten this clue from him. So, and if you ever forget to, you can always come back to the entrance and talk to him again to get that clue once more. I think a lot of players actually just skimmed through this. They didn't realize this was really all that important. They just kind of button mashed through it. But yeah, he's giving you some very important information you need to even complete the dungeon. So just pay attention to what he's saying here, and then that will give you little tips on how to proceed later. So once you've finished your conversation with Gold, you want to go ahead and enter the locked door nearby, and this leads to a large open chamber which will show a cinematic of it as soon as you enter, and this is actually the main chamber of the dungeon. We're going to be returning to this room repeatedly, actually many times throughout this dungeon, because we keep going back and forth. Now, oddly enough, this room actually does not have a bunch of shortcuts leading back and forth between these various entrances. Instead, it's just a series of bridges. So we're just kind of going left and right, just kind of zigzagging our way through the dungeon as we're steadily working over to the boss door. So kind of, you can kind of tell how far you've progressed in this dungeon based on which bridge you are on, which is kind of weird, but other than that, you don't actually have access to the whole central chamber in general. It's actually just like a transition point, I guess. That's the best way to say it. Up ahead, we have a new enemy called Dark Keys. Now, Dark Keys will curse you just like the cursed spumes we saw on our way up through Volcano Summit. So you do want to avoid letting them touch you because they'll make you unable to use your sword for a little bit. Instead, I recommend you use B-button items. The scatter shot is probably the best option, honestly, but other than that, the whip is definitely the better option for if they're getting pretty close especially. All you have to do is hold Z and just keep whipping repeatedly with your Wiimote. You'll automatically kill whatever is closest. So they're really helpful against keys in particular. I think a lot of people don't really appreciate how powerful the whip is against keys, but it's a very effective item, and we just haven't had access to it most of the game. But yeah, really good. In the next room, you want to go ahead and go over to the left where there's a chest containing 20 rupees, but right next to it is some jars containing arrows. You should grab those because we will use them in the upcoming room. In this room, we encounter a new enemy that we can't actually defeat yet, and so we're going to have to just stand on the nearby platform and let the hand raise you up to the next area so that you can continue on through this area. Just work your way through all this area, climbing the vines and shooting the bokoblins with arrows and stuff like that. You can also, almost all these guys actually have horns, so you can collect the monster horns with your whip if you want. Anyway, little side story. In the English language, actually most of the words that we use every day in English are actually derived from Greek and Latin roots. I took etymology when I was in middle school or even before that. I'm actually not even sure. I was homeschooled, and that's actually pretty normal to take etymology for homeschoolers in the United States, but a lot of public schools don't do that, I don't think. I've had a lot of conversations with people where I encounter a new word, and I know exactly what it means at first glance because I know my Latin and Greek roots, or at least I remember some of them anyways. So I know what a word means at first glance, and they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, it's what it says. It literally says that. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, I don't even know how to start this conversation. But anyways, so this word of this enemy, it's magma plus manos, and that literally means like hot fluid hand or like lava hand. That's literally its name. They do kind of move the vowels around a little bit, so you can pronounce it either Magmanos or Magmanos. I'm not sure how they're Nintendo's intending this to be done, but anyways, its name totally makes sense. But yeah, magma is a Greek word, and then manos is, well, it's technically Spanish, I guess, with that O in it, but manos is derived from the Latin word manus, with a U instead, which means hand. So anyways, this word is actually a mishmash of Greek and Latin, and Nintendo came up with it just for this. But yeah, literally lava hand or whatever, basically is what that means. So if you know your roots, you can actually figure out what a lot of words mean in English. In fact, I think it's like 60% of words in English in general are derived from Greek and Latin roots. And in the scientific fields especially, it's actually more like 90%. So like, you have H2O, dihydrogen oxide or whatever, like di means two. Like literally, if you know what the words are, then it makes sense. You can read these big complicated words where you're like, I have no idea what that means. They all literally have meaning. So it's actually quite literal. But yeah, etymology, it's a cool thing, but I kind of wonder, do people just not take etymology anymore? I don't know, I grew up with it, but occasionally this just comes up in conversation, especially when I recognize a word, people will be like, how do you know that? And I'll be like, well, it's Latin. Yeah, I know my roots. And they'll be like, no, I'm pretty sure it's Spanish. And I'm like, no, it's totally Latin. They're like, no, it's not Latin, it's Latino. And I'm like, you literally just, Latino means from Latin. Like, what? This went downhill real fast. I'm just done. I'm done. But yeah, this, it comes up every once in a while, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just a little side story for you. So anyways, we went across that bridge. There was a new enemy there called a Dark Lizalfos. Now, Dark Lizalfos can curse you just like the Dark Keys we saw earlier, as well as the Cursed Spume. You want to avoid their flame attack because they will curse you for a while. You'll be unable to use your sword. In the next room, we need to use the beetle, but it might be smart to take out the nearby Cursed Spume first, just because it might be shooting at you. So take that out with either a Skyward Strike or a arrow shot with your bow, and then after that you can go ahead and use the beetle. There's several rupees that are in the alcoves nearby, and these are just to draw attention to the alcoves in general, so that you will notice that there is a bomb flower up in one of the alcoves. So this is a little clue that we need to use that to release the rock that is in the mouth of the dragon statue nearby on the nearby wall. You can see there's lava trickling out of its mouth. So you want to use the bomb flower on the dragon head. This will break the rocks and allow lava to flow through the room once again. Now remember that when you use one of these little water bulb things, that the platforms would just disappear or they'll melt really quickly if the lava is not moving. But if the lava is moving, it will allow you to ride a platform through the room. So now that we have the lava moving through here again, you can smack the nearby water bulb, and this will allow us to ride the platform over to the far side. Now ideally you would take out the bokoblin archers as well as the cursed spume up ahead. There's several of them along the way, and you want to take them out ahead of time, but I'm actually not doing it on purpose just to show dodging back and forth. It's not really a big deal. You just kind of weave back and forth a little bit every once in a while, and it's totally fine. But up ahead you probably want to defeat the bokoblins, and again, you can take their monster horns if you want to. It doesn't really matter too much though. This dungeon honestly is the best place to get monster horns. It's everywhere. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Most enemies have monster horns in this dungeon. However, I will say that the pirate's ship has a great place where you can farm them and just run back and forth, and I showed that earlier in the walkthrough. So I guess to be more specific, if you're going to be just collecting the monster horns in general, then this dungeon is definitely the best way to go. The Fire Sanctuary is the best. However, if you're going to be farming them, collecting a whole bunch in a short period of time, the fastest place by far is on the sand ship. So in this room we see a Mogma who's been strung up and he's being held over top of lava, so that's kind of sad. But otherwise we have these little patches of magma that are on the floor, and you can blow on them with the gust bellows to make them slowly be removed. Now you do have to hold the gust bellows on them for a little bit until they're finally disappeared, and they do tend to drop rupees, so you can gather that if you like. Up ahead there is one more that is blocking the chest. This is the one you have to get rid of in particular. The other ones you can weave back and forth around. There is also a target on the ground, on the wall, which you can claw shot to, which will take you to this chest, which has a small key. However, you're still going to have to use the gust bellows to get out of this little area, so you are forced to use the gust bellows either way. So this little thing is training for you so that when you see those later in the game that you know what to do with them. It's kind of nice to see the gust bellows actually have a use again, although as far as potential things it could do, it is kind of lame. Like, the gust bellows honestly just feel like a pretty worthless item. I mean, I guess they turn things too, but other than that, they just remove obstacles, which is kind of boring. They don't create anything. You can't really use them in combat. I guess it's honestly just like an alternative to bombs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, bombs will blow up walls, and then this will remove objects that are in the way. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't really feel all that exciting. Another kind of lame item in the Zelda series is the shovel, honestly. It's really boring, but at least this game doesn't have a shovel, you know? If we were just digging all the time, it'd be really boring. On a more serious note, though, I do think that digging is a little more practical in this game because it gives you hearts and it gives you other items too, but also just the fact that it's with an A button is just kind of nice. Like, you don't have to actually pull up the B button to do it, so that's kind of nice. I mean, you know, when you think about it, it's like, why haven't I been able to do this with just the A button for all these years and all these other Zelda games? So I do think as far as a shovel-type mechanic goes, Skyward Sword did a good job. Now this area is totally filled with all these water fruit, and they will poke you if you touch them on accident, so you can just slash them to get out of their way and stuff, but otherwise you can also just roll under them as another method of dealing with them. So if you don't want to touch them at all, that's another way of like getting underneath them. So you just run at them and shake your nunchuck and you can get out. To the far south there is a small chest containing a red rupee, which is worth 20, and there's also some jars here, and one of them has a fairy. So if you want a fairy and you don't have glittering spores to make your own, you can go ahead and just slash this thing to get one real quick. This one for some reason was just floating up really high. I tried to catch it with the bug catching net. My thought was that it would, like if I didn't have a bottle, it would just reappear right next to me. Instead, it reappeared back in its starting location, so it was still too high, which is kind of weird. I'm not really sure why that one was flying so high. This chest up above has a rare treasure, and I think it actually has a chance to be a goddess plume and stuff too, or a golden skull or whatever, but evil crystals are kind of like meh. I mean, as long as you got a bunch in the ancient cistern when you were there, it's not a big deal. But otherwise, it is like, yeah, you can get a bunch in the ancient cistern, so I'm not really too worried about it. Like, and as long as you get a bunch while you're there, then you get more than enough than you need for the rest of the entire game. So it's not really a big deal. If you weren't trying to get them super thoroughly, then it's a kind of a pain. So one thing you can do with water fruit is you can stab them instead, and this allows you to hold it on the tip of your sword. So what you want to do is stab one of the ones nearby, and you can actually do it with the lower ones too, but there is this very obvious point where you can stab through and do that. But then stand near the upper area right here, there's this little ledge, and you can throw it at the frog up above. Now, an alternative for that too is there is actually another trick where you can do it below, where you stab one of these from below, and then you can do this. You can do a jump attack with Z and A, and then throw your sword. While you got to kind of hold the fruit up, I think is actually right before you do it. So hold the sword up. Oops. So hold it up, and now do Z and A forward, and then throw it. Boom. So it's a cool little thing. They do that in speedruns all the time, but you don't actually have to go up there. That's more of an advanced trick. I just think it's fun. Like, you can move through that room really quickly if you do that, but I do still recommend you go above because there's some treasure there. So up ahead, I was just kind of messing with these Pokémon. In particular, the really important thing to watch out for is this dark key, so as long as you take care of that, then you're kind of safe at that point. I was just kind of messing around here with the bug net. I think actually enemies usually don't react to it, but there is several bosses towards the end of the game that will react to having the bug catching net out, which is kind of fun. I will show those. I'm not actually aware of any enemies that react to it. If you guys know of any, let me know in the comments. I think that all of them just ignore it, though. Alright, up ahead we have two Magmanos at the same time. Again, I'm not sure on the pronunciation if it's Magmanos or Magmanos, but either way, Magmanos is putting more emphasis on the hand portion of the word. But anyways, so these guys, what you want to do is stand on one of the nearby platforms, let the hand pull you up, and there is one of those water bulbs up here. So you want to grab it and then head back down by stabbing it, and then from here just wait for one of the hands to show itself, back up, and then throw the bulb at it. Now if you're lucky, you can actually hit both of them at the same time, which would be really cool. If not, you're just going to have to defeat one and then go back to that platform and let the hand raise you up again. once you've defeated both of the Magmanos, this will open up the nearby door as well as lower the lava. So now we can safely get down this magma without having to worry about the lava that it would normally land in. So you want to run over, and you can either use the whip on this, or you can just climb up and grab the lever itself. This will lower the magma, which he will then give you the dungeon item, which is the Mogma Mitts. Alright, so what the Mogma Mitts allow us to do is they work just the same as the digging mitts, but now we have some soft soil locations that actually lead to tunnels. Now, when you dig them up, they look slightly different, and there was actually a hole I dug up earlier that had a hole in it that looked slightly different. It didn't actually lead to any items, and that is because it required the Mogma Mitts instead. So we're going to actually go back to that here in a little bit. For now, though, you just want to enter this hole, and inside, there's a couple things you can do that are kind of interesting. One thing you can do, that he talks about right here, that I think a lot of players forget about, is you can press Z to see what is happening above ground. Now, this is actually very helpful for specific parts in the game, but in particular during this dungeon. So you can hold Z at any time so you can see a faint outline of what's happening above. I'll be using this feature throughout the walkthrough, and I'll talk about it whenever I do it, but yeah, I just wanted to point it out real quick. So next what you want to do is you want to use the bomb flower to blow up this particular type of, this like cluster of rocks, whatever, they need to be bombed. All the other regular rocks can just be smashed by just walking into them. I think you just swing the Wiimote. That's how you do that. So you just crawl up to it, swing the Wiimote, and this will destroy that. In this room we have several of these like clusters of magma on the ground, and you can blow them away, and some of them even have little soft soil patches that you can get items from. So there's one towards this locked door that leads to some elven ore, and the other one actually is our next destination. So you go over to the other one, blow this one away too, and this will lead to the next hole that we want to dig up. So you'll notice that up ahead we have a gate, and it's blocking our path, but when you're underground you can also press Z to see above ground, like I was explaining a little bit ago. So if you do so here, you can actually see the gate while you're digging around underground. So by crawling around using Z, you can see what's happening above ground, and this will allow you to see what's happening with the gate. So it makes it make a little bit more sense, but anyways, when you smack this this doober here, this button, you want to hit it with the Wiimote. So just swing the Wiimote. This will cause you to strike out with the Mogma Mitts, and this will punch the switch, which causes the gate to move. Now you can also move the gate back. There's no reason to, but I'm just commenting that you can. But then go ahead and exit the hole. Now using that Z trick to see above ground is actually particularly useful when you are like in a hole that has multiple exits. So if there's multiple places you can get out, you can use Z to figure out where you are. Now our next objective is to head straight across this bridge. However, there is actually a previous area we can go to create a shortcut, but also we can go to do something else that we didn't have access to before. So you head over to the right instead. This takes us south in the dungeon, and over here there is actually there's something we can get real quick. Now, something I want to point out is whenever you use the whip to grab monster horns from bokoblins, they actually are stunned for a second. They kind of freak out and stomp their feet or whatever. So if you do this on them, whether or not you're actually needing monster horns, it is still useful because it makes them vulnerable for several seconds. So rather than having to get past their defenses, using the whip is actually very effective for that. So anyways, this takes us all the way back to a previous room. You step on the switch nearby, and this takes us back to a room we've been in before. And from here, you can see there's actually a hole that we can go into, which we couldn't access before. I dug it up, but I couldn't do anything with it before. And now we can finally access it. So you want to crawl through here and smack the nearby switch. This will move the gate up above. And again, you can use Z so you can see above and see what that looks like. But anyways, go ahead and exit the hole. This takes us back upstairs, and now we have this path we can take where there was previously a gate blocking our way. So this leads to a room that has a bunch of water fruit, and we have a floor switch we can step on which will remove a nearby gate, which allows us to get back to an area where there is a Magmanos that we couldn't defeat earlier in the game, so early in the dungeon. So grab one of these nearby water fruit, and then jump down into this arena where we can fight this single Magmanos. Now earlier we were using it just to get up on a platform to raise us up so we could get through here, but now that we just created that shortcut too, we don't have to deal with that anymore regardless. But once you defeat this Magmanos, this will lower the lava, which allows us to access another new area where there is which leads to a treasure chest. Now you could have actually figured out that you could have gone here by looking at your map. If you follow, like you figure out where the chest is and you trace it backwards on your map, you'd realize it would lead to this room. And once you come here, you'd realize what you need to do. So there is actually tricks to this, but you can only do this after you have the Mogma Mitts. This leads to a chest containing the 4th bottle in the game. There's 5 total, and which is actually kind of a lot for a Zelda game just in general, but yeah, lots and lots of bottles, lots and lots of healing. But like I was saying before, I think that bottles are actually one of the most powerful items that you can have in your adventure pouch. So if you're going to, yeah, I don't know. But one of the nice things about this too is you could pick and choose certain bottles. So if you're not going to get all of them, then this might be an easy one to get because it doesn't take too long. So if you don't want to do any of the Gratitude Crystals quests, then this might be a nice alternative because it doesn't take too long. So you could grab this one. So since the Magmanos is defeated, we can't actually use the nearby platform to get back up, but it doesn't matter because in order to defeat the Magmanos in the first place, you have to create this nearby shortcut. So climb up, go back through the room with the water bulbs, climb up the stairs, then go out the door and then back, I think west it is, and then go north, and this will take us back to the area where we continue on with the rest of the dungeon. So you can also save here at the nearby bird statue if you want to, but yeah, this will lead on to the rest of the dungeon. So that is actually the end of this video, folks. Join me for the next one where we'll continue with the second half of Fire Sanctuary. As always, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in a moment. Do I kill the Guardian first? I probably should. It's gonna harass me the whole time. I don't want to. What would happen if I brought this over to it and punched it with a flaming barrel? Oh! Wow, that was bad. Oh, that was so bad. Okay, well, not smart. Yeah, apparently. Oh, man. I can't see, actually. Yes! First try.